Hi, everyone. Welcome to this last-minute decision to do a preview of the Volta de España. That's coming up this weekend. It's the third of the Grand Tours. The first, of course, being the Giro d'Italia, won by Chris Froome. He was going for the double, but he lost to his teammate Geraint Thomas in the Tour de France. You're watching Good for the Game TV. We do lots of sports betting previews. You can subscribe to our channel below this video. Well, joining me is a man who never used to follow cycling, I'd say up until about a decade ago. I'm pleased to say I got him into it. He started following the game and he's become an absolute nutcase for it now. He absolutely loves his cycling. Chris Sturdy. Chris, good to have you on the show.
Yeah, thanks, Brent. I do indeed love the cycling, and the Vuelta. I'm looking forward to this one.
Yeah, it should be an excellent race. The Vuelta, Chris, it's one of those races. There's generally three types of people who ride the Vuelta as far as general contenders. There's the occasional Spaniard who targets it all through the year. Then you get the guy who was looking for a big Tour de France and wiped out and didn't ride as well as he would have, and he comes in. And then you've got the injury guys who have crashes and that through the season, so they've had to change their plans. And the Vuelta is really the last chance. And what that means is I always find with the Vuelta, of all the Grand Tours, it can often be the most exciting because, first of all, the route tends to have a lot of hills in, but you don't have that Team Sky-like dominance that you get in the Tour de France, obviously. So you have Team Sky here, but they certainly don't have their A team here. And there's no one team that I can see that is really going to control this event.
Yeah, I agree, Brent, 100%. And, when you look at it with the favourites, guys who've had a go at the previous Grand Tours and, came unstuck for whatever reason. So, very much the last chance to get something from the season. And it should make for exciting racing.
It certainly should. And having a look at the betting earlier, I saw Richie Port is basically co-favorite, I think, with Simon Yates. We'll pull the betting up on screen in just a bit. But certainly already just from the betting, you can see that we're looking for an open encounter here. And Chris, I know you and I are both looking further down the list as well.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Richie Port, it'd be great to see him win in some ways because the guy's so unlucky with crashes, often not his fault as well. Can he do it over 3 weeks? Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how he goes. And I wish him all the best, but he's plenty short enough for me in the betting. And yeah, to some degree, the same goes for Simon Yates as well. And then we've got Quintana, third favourite. How much has the Tour de France taken out of him? Angel Lopez, hugely talented climber, but again, Grand Tour wise, can we really go with him with any confidence? Valverde, long season. The guy that I like is the next one on the list, Rigoberto Urán.
Well, Chris, I'm bringing up this betting on Sunbet now. I'm hoping in a few secs you'll be able to see the screen. And just running through them there, just giving some prices. We got Richie Port, 2.75 to 1. Just bear in mind, this is Sunbet. So I don't have fraction. I've got decimal betting on here. Simon Yates, 3 to 1. Quintana, who you mentioned, 5 to 1. Lopez, who I must say, I fancied a bit last night. I saw there was some 10 to 1 available about him. He's shortened considerably into sevens. Valverde, well, he's evergreen, and this is surely one of his last Grand Tours. He's 12 to 1. And then 18 to 1, Rigoberto Urán. Chris, tell me about your fancy.
Yeah, well, Brent, he's podiumed in Tour de France and he's podiumed in the Giro. There's not an awful lot of Vuelta form about him, but he was dark horse material for the Tour de France. Unfortunately, like many of the GC contenders, he crashed early and his race was run really. I think he abandoned on stage 11 or 12, I think it was, but his race was run before that. He's made a comeback just to win a one-day classic, the San Sebastian. He came sixth in that, behind Alaphilippe and the one-day specialist. No disgrace in that. The thing is, Brent, 3-week race. The majority of the climbing comes in the second half of the race. So if he is a little bit undercooked, he's got time to ride himself into form. I mean, we've seen that before with the likes of Nibali in the Grand Tours, And I think podium wise anyway, 9 to 2. I think there is there with Sunbet, 9 to 2 for podium. Yeah, I think with the chances that one of the top two favourites may crash out, unfortunately, I think it opens the door for Urán certainly to be top 3. He's got to stay on his bike, he's got to stay well, but I reckon the guy can at least take us into week 3 with a good run for our money.
Yeah, 9-2, nothing wrong with that. Well, talking of crashing, it looks like someone's crashed into our broadcast here. I see him in the bottom right-hand corner there. It's our own couch critic. He'll be on our main show tomorrow night at 9 o'clock, of course, to talk rugby betting in particular. And it's Hein Dumont. Hein, good to have you on the show. I'm sure you're itching for the Vuelta.
How's it, Chris? How's it, Brent? Yeah, no, definitely. I don't know what you guys have discussed, or I heard you guys talking about some of the favorites, but I think the exciting thing about the Vuelta is that some of the guys at the top there are quite a few question marks around them. So it's almost a case of, rather than picking who you like, I think it's a case of picking or trying to cross out those guys you think weren't going to make it, and then you're going to be left with a couple of guys you might put some bucks on.
That's for sure. I'm just having a look at a couple of the lads watching us. Henrik Swat says, good to see Chris's face on the broadcast. He forgot to add that it's definitely a face for radio, and Paul Peters watching as well. So just to tell the guys, I was going to make a post on the comment section there. We're probably not going to preview every stage, but throughout the Vuelta, this is going to be a nice little medium for us to discuss the next stage and perhaps that's what happened the day. So we'll certainly have some betting previews coming throughout the Vuelta as well. And yeah, Hein, good to see you on. We just chatted about Chris's fancy Rigoberto Uran. I'm just going to go back to the betting now quickly, and I just got to get used to doing this still a little bit raw. But I'm on Sunbet's page at the moment, and we stopped here at Rigoberto Uran at 18-1. Fabio Aru, gentlemen, 20-1. He's a guy who burst onto the scene a few years ago. He's won himself a Grand Tour, but he just hasn't really trained on from there. He's been battling a bit. We got Thibaut Pinot, who was a bit of a disappointment for me in the Giro. He skipped the Tour de France this year, but certainly might be suited by the route. And then a guy, Wilco Kelderman, who rides, of course, for the Sunweb side team. He was supposed to be support for Tom Dumoulin in the Tour de France, but as things happened, he had an accident just beforehand, and he had to pull out. And I guess the big question mark here is over his well-being, but he certainly could be a big runner there at 28-1. And finally, I just want to mention George Bennett, the New Zealander, 33-1. He's shown up quite well in Grand Tours. I think it was in the Giro, Chris, that he went very well.
Yeah, he's a good rider. And I think Kelderman and George Bennett that you touched on there, yeah, certainly, guys who can be, top five. Whether they can actually threaten a win, I'm not sure. And I think maybe, the George Bennett anyway, he could be somebody who, maybe he fades and then he looks for a stage win in the last week or something like that. Kelderman, I would be more sweet on. The problem might be, it's like what Dumoulin has in the Tour de France. How many teammates is he going to have around him when it really counts in those high mountains? When you look at Port and Simon Yates, Quintana, I guess, as well, and even my guy Uran, they've got proven climbers there with them, and I'm not sure that Kelderman's got that quality surrounding him.
That's a good point. Hein, any of those guys catch your eye? I'm just scrolling a bit even further down to see maybe there's someone at around the 50-1 mark you like.
Yeah, I think, Brent, the interesting thing that I want to point out is that, the Vuelta is almost like a little bit of a default to a stage or event. There's not a lot of people that really targeted. I mean, if you look at the betting there, Richie Port, it's a default for him. He crashed out, so he's hoping to be fit. He's hoping to be ready. It's not like something he's really trained for and really thought he's going to peak for the Vuelta. And a lot of people are talking about the world champs, and because the course suits the climbers this time around, I know Nibali has been talking a lot about only really using this as a tune-up. So I think those are factors to keep in mind there. As I said, who's really targeting this thing to win, and that's where someone like a Kelderman could come in, because he wants to show that he's a leader in his own right there, and this is his chance to take it up and do that. And George Bennett as well. I see the big thing for me was going between him and Kruijswijk. Kruijswijk obviously offers some value, but again, he's coming into it after his recent event. So maybe in the third week he might lose a bit of form. On your Thibaut Pinot, the only concern I have there is, I know they say it's going to be very hot in that first week, and traditionally he's struggled to cope for the bit of the heat. So again, it's almost like I'm crossing out guys here, and I'm struggling to really find a lot of value, or there is a lot of value on some bigger price guys, I think. So I have a shot there. I took 50-1 on Kruijswijk just as an interest sake, and then I'm looking at someone else, maybe a George Bennett to back that up, then obviously I'm very involved in Lotto Jumbo. But something around there, because I mean at that price you can't really take Port, I don't think, as an odds on there. I mean you never know how he's going to come out after his injury. As I said, Nibali is using it as a tune-up. So Nairo Quintana, maybe he thinks, listen, he's got to show that he's still got it. So maybe he's a decent punt.
Yeah, certainly if Quintana brings his A game, which for my money, he hasn't had for quite some time, he's going to be a big rider. Chris, I do have someone else for you that I'd like to mention, and I'll get Hein's opinion on him as well. He's a bit further down the list there, but he's my fancy, certainly for a podium at around 12 to 1. He's 50 to 1. It's the Russian, Ilnur Zakarin. Now, Zakarin is someone who has ridden quite a number of Grand Tours now. He tends to start off very slowly and come on very strong in the third week, just like he did in the Tour de France. This is the first time he's riding back-to-back Grand Tours, which is potentially a concern. But Chris, for a guy who gets stronger as the tour goes on, it might actually be a good thing for Zakarin.
Yeah, just researching this quickly, he was third last year, Brent. So podium last year, that's decent form. And yeah, he could be. My concern with this guy is going downhill. Hey, I think, to be honest, Brent, I'd rather be behind you than this guy going downhill. So, read into that what you will. But if he stays upright, he was a little bit disappointing, wasn't he, in the last Grand Tour, where we thought he might feature a little bit more than what he did. But yeah, I mean, he's got the form in the Vuelta, so I wouldn't put you off.
Good. Hein, what do you think about that one at 50 to 1?
No, I must say, as I said, I like going for a few bigger odd guys, and I think actually the Vuelta might suit him perfectly. I don't think there's actually a real downhill finish. I think I had a little look quickly, and I didn't really see something that's going to focus a lot. And they do have a few that's going to end on quite steep climbs, so he could come into his own right. The only other thing I would like to say that I'm not sure that it's always part of Vuelta is there's a 8-kilometer individual time trial to start it off with, and then in the last week another 32 one. So it's also important to know that it's not like completely to be ignored. You still have to have a little bit of time trialing skill to be able to win the thing outright. So then again, that's something you might have to think about, taking the likes of Quintana.
Right. Well, of course, there's plenty of other markets we can bet on as well. There's things like the points classification, which I must tell you is very different to the Tour de France points classification, which is always battled out by sprinters. Here in the Vuelta, most of the sprints end on a 3-kilometer climb, so the sprinters tend to avoid this one. I see Viviani, though, is around, and I saw him as a 12 to 10 favorite. And then there's also, of course, King of the Mountains. You've got other options like match bets over the entire thing, and we'll pop back onto Sunbet and have a look at a few of those now. But Chris, from your side, you had a look beyond the outright markets at this stage. Anything speculative, or you're really just waiting for the stages?
Yeah, I mean, I saw the points classification. Viviani was a hot favorite, and I think he was even with 7 to 10 to win 3 stages or so. There's maybe 6 or 7 flat stages, and Viviani's going to be favorite for every one of those as long as he's well. You know what? Thomas again. He's always a factor, hey? And maybe in this one, he hasn't got that pressure or those roles that he had in the Tour, where he was doing so much work for Greipel, and and on the flat stages where Greipel was going to be involved in the sprint. And maybe he gets a bit more leeway this time, and at least for a stage win, and maybe for the King of the Mountains. But I think he's also quite well fancied in that. Yeah, it's with those bets, and certainly the King of the Mountains, I think you can maybe hang on, until during that first week of the Tour at least, and see how things pans out, and see if anybody puts a marker down as to whether they're really going to go for it.
Well, let's have a look quickly at the betting for the King of the Mountains. We've got Thomas de Gent, you called it there, Chris, 8 to 1, with Lopez with him at 8 to 1. Omar Freire is at 12 to 1, and Simon Yates, the Mitchelton Scott rider, is at 15 to 1. So we've got that. Let's just, before I bring Hein in to see if he fancies anything, let's run through the betting. This is actually on the Sunbet website. Hopefully you guys can all see it. It's 11 to 10 Viviani to win the points classification. Valverde, who's one of the fastest climbing sprinters there is, and that's why he features there at 5 to 1. Matteo Trentin, he's 11 to 2, and Simon Yates once again are featuring in the betting there. The team classification, and Hein, let me bring you in there. the team classification is just one of those really dangerous classifications to bet on, because very few teams go into the actual event looking to win the team classification. So you look at a Movistar, for example, they're favorites there at just over 7-10. The reason they're such big favorites is they've just got such a strong team. But it just takes one day where Quintana has a puncher at the wrong time. The whole team will virtually drop back to help him. So, if I was going to have a go at the team classification, I'd probably be looking a bit further down the line.
No, definitely. I think, Movistar is no value there at 7-10. But I think the big thing about them, they have shown that they also do like to take, they put value in the team competition, which is something that I think a lot of people, like a Sky, they just absolutely don't care, I don't think. So Movistar do take notice of that. So even if they do lose a guy or they can't win the competition overall, they'll still have a go at the team thing. But I'm not that concerned about the team unless there's something that really stands out, which I don't really see. But sprinters, I think Matteo Trentin is in decent nick at the moment, so he might be a bit of a value pick at about 5-1. I think I saw there. And then I know Sagan is only using it. He only decided at a very late stage to join in, so I think he's also just doing a bit of prep work there for the World Championship. So I wouldn't really back him to do too much damage there. And then on King of the Mountains, it's always a case of Thomas de Gent and Omar Frail, who they're going to have a go. You pretty much know that they're always going to be there and always going to have a go. That's the thing that they target, whilst the other guys win it by default. So, a Superman Lopez, he might take it just because that's where he has to win some time, is really winning those big mountain stages. And he's actually, I think I saw him at about 10-1 somewhere. That might not be a bad pick. And him or Quintana, knowing that, they're probably going to really try and push the uphills, knowing that they can't beat Port in the time trial.
Yeah, that's a good point. Some people do chase the mountains jersey and others do fall into it by default. No pressure on you guys as we look to wrap up this first Vuelta preview. But I asked on the comments if anyone had any fancies, and Paul Peter comment, he doesn't have a clue. He's just going to follow our best bet, whatever it is. So absolutely no pressure on you guys. And Hein, let's start with you then. What is your let's call it your best bet, or at this stage your main bet for the Vuelta?
As I said, I picked up Kruijswijk at 50-1, and I topped it up with a top 3 for him at about 10-1. And then my main man is Superman Lopez there to hopefully do something. I think he's one of those guys who has this in his target range. This is something he's going to go for. I'm not sure. I think at World Sports Betting I saw 7-1, but I'm hoping I can do a bit better than that. If you can get him at 10-1, I think you've got a good runner. Astana's a quality team. I think they'll be united behind him as well. So I'm fancying that one.
Yeah, I was just mentioning, Chris, before you came on air, there was 10-1, in fact, about him last night. So unfortunately, I think the boys have got in. And when you mentioned it now, I thought maybe you were the one whose money had forced him in from 10-1 to 7-1. But like me, you're sort of kicking yourself perhaps for missing the price. Chris?
Uran, definitely. Uran podium 9-2. And yeah, maybe a bit of the nibble of the 18-1 outright, but podium 9-2.
Now, Paul Peter, if you're listening still, I can tell you Chris sounds pretty confident about that one. Gents, probably a couple of long shots for me, but my podium fancy, it's a bit of a long shot, 12-1, Ilmar Zakarin. Thanks very much for joining us. Chris and I were just chatting about before the show. We will certainly do selected previews on the Vuelta because there's going to be some very exciting stages, and look forward to having both of you back on the show and hopefully find a few winners. What is, of course, a 3-week tour. It's very important not to come out firing too hard and to save a bit of ammunition.
Brent, if I can just come in there, I think the big thing to notice if you are maybe new to cycling or new to the Vuelta, I think the stages I saw there's one early in stage 4. There's a mountain stage already, so they're definitely going to be separated. Obviously, the individual time trial will already create some gaps, but then stage 4 is a nice one to split them up a bit. And then there are 1 or 2 lumpy stages, but then the big action is stage 13, 14, 15, and I think that's actually where the tour will be decided.
Excellent, Hein. Look forward to your comments throughout the tour, both here on YouTube and also, of course, in the Good for the Game forum where you post as Couch Critic. Chris, good to have you on the show as well. Guys, look forward to it, and we'll chat closer to the weekend. Hein, we'll talk tomorrow night at 9 o'clock for the rugby. And while we're on that topic, Chris, I think you're going to join us for some soccer chat at about probably around about 9:25 tomorrow night.
Yeah, sure. We got MTN8 and English football, and we'll see what we can find.
Excellent. Well, I think the Oracle is going to make an appearance for the rugby as well, so that's always interesting. Not a man to keep his opinions to himself. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. We look forward to going through the Vuelta with you. We also look forward to your company tomorrow night at 9 for the chat betting show, but also 10 o'clock, we've got GG Gaming Gone Mad, where Gary Lenton's going to be talking to us from Switzerland. It's going to be interesting to see what he has to say, and no doubt he'll have a few promos ready for the boys. I must just mention Ruan Ferry. I know we got on very late with this live show, so not sure you'll be out there yet. Hopefully you'll catch the show, because you actually won the last double that he gave. Gary gave you 1,000 to nothing on the GG Gaming show, and that actually arrived. My one didn't arrive, unfortunately. You didn't get the 10 grand, but you got the 1,000. So I spoke to them today, and your account is being credited with that, so you've got a nice kickstart for the weekend. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again tomorrow night.